Here's our timeline on this Wednesday afternoon. Doug Peterson says Carson Wentz will miss practice today. The culprit, a back injury. They'll evaluate the quarterback on a day-to-day basis. Ravens coach John Harbaugh confirms Lamar Jackson will be the starting quarterback. Joe Flacco, the backup. Harbaugh said the decision gives the team the best chance to win right now. We'll get to all 32 teams today, as we try and do every Wednesday. We've got news and notes on every team in the NFL. We're glad you could be with us. Wendy Nix, Josina Anderson, Coach John Fox, and Teddy Bruschi. But we'll start with the Ravens' decision to opt for Lamar Jackson. Surprise here at all? I'll just go down the line.
Not at all. I mean, he's 3-1 as a starter, so they're pretty much rolling. Almost pulled out that game against the Chiefs, so you would expect them to continue in this direction.
Yeah, I think it was pretty normal reaction as far as going with Lamar. You know, really, they were one drive away from even beating the Chiefs in Kansas City. So, to me, it was kind of
I agree. Lamar,
no-brainer?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Even though that part wasn't a no-brainer.
Well, okay, I mean, they're telling Joe Flacco, basically, we may be moving on from you. This kid's an exciting, dynamic playmaker, a different shift in terms of who they have to be, in terms of their team. They got to play some good defense. They got to play good special teams to take this far into the playoffs.
Well, it's the first time Joe Flacco will be a backup in his 11-year career. Here's reaction from Baltimore.
You know, it's out of my hands. I got hurt. They drafted Lamar in the first round. At some point, you know, something was going to happen between the two of us. I want to play football. Like I said, it's not easy staying on that sideline, knowing that you have no hand in what's going on. But he's done a great job. I'm really happy for what he's been able to go out there and do. And, you know, we're winning football games. I've obviously had 5 weeks to think about it and prepare myself for this situation and the possibility of it. And, yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed that, like I said, I can't be, you know, in that locker room in the same capacity that I've always been.
Well, listen, certainly all of that is understandable, and all of that is pretty much exactly what happened. You did know that this day would come if Lamar Jackson turned out to be productive at this level. Teddy, how sustainable is this offense the way Lamar Jackson likes to run it?
You know, watching him play last week, and if he gets help from the other units, this can be winning football. This can be championship football. I don't see why, but it's got to be complementary football at its finest. Coach knows this in terms of special teams, getting you field position, defense, getting 3 and outs, the offense running that football, that play action pass, and Lamar taking care of the football. That's a familiar formula. We've all heard that formula before, and it can be executed, and you can win football games like this.
There's no doubt. Obviously, it's a better, you know, formula when you have the lead and you can play in a close game. You know, I don't know about
I'm not talking about you're down 20.
No, I got you.
That's a different game. Don't add extra caveats, Foxy.
But hey, they had the lead
like,
going into the fourth quarter. I mean, they had an opportunity to close out that game last week. Otherwise, he'd be 4-0. So it definitely works. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, you know, kudos to Lamar Jackson for getting 2 passing touchdowns in the second half, and also being able to affect not just himself with the rushing game, but others. You see Gus Edwards, an undrafted free agent rookie running back, having 300-plus rushing yards in 3 games, and also, as we've been talking about, affecting the defense, who were on the field for just 4 plays against the Atlanta Falcons when they were down in Atlanta, but also just underlining the fact that how gracious Joe Flacco is, you know, in accepting really which is now underlined and highlighted as a demotion for him to be able to do that. But they show that they can be effective, as we all have talked about with Lamar Jackson.
And I think the coaching staff also, Coach Harbaugh, seeing how the team sort of reacted to Lamar being in there. Did your team have a little bit of an injection of life?
A spark, perhaps.
A spark, absolutely. I think that happened with Lamar when they see the excitement that he brings, the explosive ability that he brings. I mean, even if he's just, I mean, as of now, it's mainly running, you know, and he can convert certain 3rd and shorts and the 2 passing touchdowns. You got to put him in these situations for him to improve. If he's your guy and you're telling Joe we're going to move forward with him down in the playoffs, in games that mean playoffs are on the line, you got to put him in those 3rd down situations, those 2-minute situations at the end of the half, at the end of the game. It's the only way he's going to learn. I'm with him now. I'm with him.
Okay, so you're on the bandwagon.
2 weeks ago,
America,
he was
Teddy,
like nickel for him.
Teddy is on the Lamar Jackson train.
Finally.
Yes. recall a certain debate between the two of you.
Just a little bit, but it was cordial because, we respect one another. But I just wanted to say I actually conceded a little bit somewhat. We talked about the love last time. But no, I conceded actually somewhat to Teddy in the green room because I was saying I was at the game. I was a reporter for the Chiefs-Ravens game. And in the final couple minutes of regulation and in OT, there was that, little part of me that said maybe, Joe Flacco would have been better in this scenario just because Lamar Jackson appeared a little bit greener behind the ear or wetter behind the ear, whatever phrase you want to use. And that's just experience. And obviously you talk about he needs, obviously, the growth. But that's where I said, okay, Teddy, I heard you in my ear. Maybe just this one.
But I see it too.
But overall, I think Lamar is the guy moving forward.
The holiday season. Look at all this.
Making Ozzie Newsome look smart.
With Lamar Jackson and Jameis Winston starting, it'll be a quarterback matchup between the two youngest players ever to win the Heisman. So if that comes up at a party, you know the answer now. All right, shifting to Carson Wentz and the Eagles, we've got additional quarterback news. And to do that, we will say hello to our Eagles reporter, Tim McManus. And Tim, we know Wentz is dealing with a sore back. He did sit out of practice today. What more are you hearing from there?
Yeah, Wendy, in fact, I just got off the practice field, and there was Nick Foles and Nate Sudfeld warming up. No Carson Wentz. He's missing his first practice of the year for what Coach Doug Peterson described as back stiffness and soreness. Now, he's popped up on the injury report before with this issue, but this has a different feel to it. There is some doubt as to whether he's going to play on Sunday against the Rams, and beyond that, his future is a little bit cloudy. What could help clear that up are some tests that are going to get done later today, as reported by our own Chris Mortensen. There should be a clearer picture then, but for now, there's just a lot of crossed fingers here in the city of Philadelphia.
Well, Tim, understandably so, given what's at stake as we make our way now into the stretch run. Thank you. And we certainly are there. We're down to the final few games of the season, which means some critical games over the weekend. Pivotal week, especially for the 7 and 6 teams in the AFC. The race for that 6th seed heats up. The Colts hold the best chance to earn it, according to our Football Power Index, followed by the Titans, the Ravens, and the Dolphins. Baltimore hosts the Bucs this week. The Ravens have been running like crazy with the aforementioned Lamar Jackson as the starting quarterback, running by design on an NFL high 60% of their offensive plays. Andrew Luck and the Colts face the Cowboys. They've won 5 straight. Indy looking to build off a big win last week. It snapped the Texans' 9-game winning streak. Tennessee heads to the Big Apple to face the G-Men. Running back Derrick Henry coming off a huge week. He rushed for a franchise record 238 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Miami heads to Minnesota after taking down the Patriots in that thrilling late 69-yard touchdown from Kenyon Drake in the closing seconds of regulation. We have reporters with both teams. Cameron Wolf with the Dolphins. Courtney Cronin is in Minnesota. And we'll start with the Dolphins. Cameron, what is the latest on Ryan Tannehill's injury?
Yeah, Wendy, I just got off the practice field a few minutes ago. Ryan Tannehill was out there. He was able to practice. He was able to do his normal reps as a quarterback, but he did have his right ankle heavily taped in black tape. He suffered that ankle injury in his second quarter. He did return, but that's one thing to watch throughout the week. He doesn't seem to be in any serious danger of missing the game, but mobility will be a key for him. Obviously, he's a guy who can be able to use his legs and the read option to be able to get things flowing. Adam Gase was not able to have that in his playbook last week. So we know that he's in a little bit of pain, but he's going to be able to try to push to go. And we'll see exactly how much it impacts the Dolphins' game plan heading into a big game against the Vikings.
Cameron, thank you. We referenced the way that game against New England ended. How have the Dolphins handled this week after the so-called Miami Miracle?
Yeah, Wendy, coaches always have the cliche 24 hours on a win, and that's the Dolphins mindset, but it's tough to do when you have the greatest play in maybe franchise history in the Miami Miracle. Kenyon Drake is selling T-shirts. They're doing a bunch of interviews and stuff, but Wednesday, they tried to channel everything back. They tried to channel everything back to where they are, and they said that Adam Gase had a meeting, his normal Wednesday meeting, and he told the guys, hey, we're on to Minnesota. We've got bigger things going on. Yes, it was a great play. Yes, it was a great day, but we've got playoffs. It's a reasonable chance for them to make the playoffs, and it starts this week against the Vikings. So they're on track. They were upbeat today in practice, and they're trying to get their focus away from all the attention they're getting and on to Minnesota, where they play this week.
It's all fun and games until somebody sells a T-shirt. Cameron, thank you. For more on the Vikings, we'll say hello to Courtney Cronin. And Courtney, a change in offensive coordinator this week. How different will this offense look under Kevin Stefanski?
Wendy, this change is happening at a critical time for the Vikings. Their season hangs in the balance. Players I spoke with in the locker room today, reiterating what Mike Zimmer said yesterday on a conference call, that tangible sense of urgency this team has to execute now down the stretch. Now, Kevin Stefanski is one of the longest staff members here in Minnesota, and Kirk Cousins has worked with him as his quarterbacks coach. So it's not like they're going to reinvent the offensive scheme and start running a bunch of zone reads and a bunch of trick plays. But where they do expect changes to happen is with execution. That's where Cousins said the focus is, resulting in points. And with the Vikings making this change in Week 15, there's one question that needs to be answered.
How can it help? I don't know. I think, no matter who's coaching this team, we got to come together and execute as players, take ownership, prepare well, help one another, communicate well. We believe in Coach Stefanski, and we believe in the coaches that will be leading us, and we'll get behind them and put a good plan together and be ready to execute it come Sunday.
It's tough to see. It's tough to see someone lose their job, and especially a guy that works as hard as he does. But like I said before, at the same time, it's Coach Zimmer feels like that's the best thing to help this team win games, then we're going to fully support it. And we got to go out there now and execute, and we have to make him right and make sure that we are doing everything we can as an offense to move the ball and to help this team win games.
Tight end Kyle Rudolph said in a radio interview that he didn't really think the Vikings had an identity on offense. So I asked several players in the locker room today whether they agreed with that sentiment and what they would like to see that identity become. Pat Elflein told me they want to become more balanced. The Vikings dropped back on 69% of their plays this season. That's the fourth most in the NFL. So what more balance would entail? Still dropping back, but also igniting the screen game, getting some more play action, and running the ball.
Courtney, thank you. That phrase, balance and running the ball, of course, have been extremely important in Minnesota. A big reason why they made the change in the first place. And Josina, I know you've been gauging the team's reaction this week. What you're hearing?
Well, it's interesting because we kind of talked about this last week, and I feel like there were early indicators that this move with John DeFilippo, the former offensive coordinator, may come. Remember, last week they were talking about the fact that they weren't running the ball enough. Dalvin Cook having just that one run for 0 yards in the fourth quarter, and also the fact that you have Thielen not producing as much as well, and this not being acceptable. And then you go against the Seahawks in front of the entire country. There's 7 points, and basically the source said, see, it was the same thing again. They were rushing 31% of the time before Dalvin Cook returned for the Vikings, and it's still 31%. So basically he's saying, Josina, nothing has changed, so I can't say that I am surprised. And also, when I was just asking about Kirk Cousins, he's still behind the Kirk Cousins train. We talked about the Lamar Jackson train. He's still behind Kirk Cousins. And the source said, I do not think it is Kirk Cousins' fault. We still have the issues with the offensive line and all the injuries that we had, not consistent there, still not running the ball. Kirk is still getting too much pressure on him. So I think you're missing Tony Sperano and the effect that had on those things. Yep. And that really is what he wanted to place more of the attention to as opposed to Kirk right now.
Yeah. And with Coach Zimmer, I mean, the kind of coach that I know that he is, coming from the Bill Parcells tree, having the ability as a head coach to communicate to your coaches in terms of what you want accomplished. I want to run the ball more. Okay, I want to do this. I want to do that. You go get that done. That's how much of a relationship and how much he is respected as a head coach. So this firing tells me a lot. It tells me a lot in terms of, was the message not getting through? All right, you still are not running the ball, like Josina said, even though Cook's back. What's the motivation here? There's a disconnect. There had to be a disconnect between Zimmer and DeFilippo for Zimmer to think that he couldn't get it fixed as a head coach. I couldn't do my job enough to fix this, to do what we wanted to do the next week. Instead, somebody's got to go. And that's a sign to me in terms of the disconnect that had to be going on in that coaching staff.
Correct. And it appears that disconnect was present for quite some time. These two just couldn't get on the same page. And as Tim Hasselbeck pointed out, the chain of command is pretty clear. Head coach wants to run the ball more.
Better run the ball.
But you better run the ball more.
And you know what, Wendy, we were talking about this in the green room, and let's have a real conversation about this. And, Coach, I think you're probably less to speak on this. Like, how much of that has to do with a coordinator or a coach who may be a prospective head coaching candidate trying to, create a perception about how he's running his offense or how he would like to run his offense, as opposed to maybe what a coach behind the scenes or other coaches are telling you behind the scenes to do in terms of running this offense now?
Mm-hmm. Well, the best way to make that happen is win. All right? Forget about how you win.
Right.
There's not pretty and ugly. It's just, do you get that W? They're a 13-3 team a year ago. They're playing good defense. I'm not saying it's really up to par what it was a year ago, but it's a top 5 defense. And they've been in games the last few weeks with good football teams, but they're not scoring points. Right. And you have to score points.
Well, Mike Zimmer has said, as you might expect, that he will get more involved in the play calling and in this offense as the season progresses. You would think so after he made this change. Still to come on NFL Live, we are keeping count as we make our way through all 32 teams as promised. 9 down, 23 to go, but we've got some time, so I'm confident we'll get there. The Cowboys, meanwhile, 3-5 at the midway point of the season. What do we know? With a win this week, Dallas can clinch the division. We'll go inside their matchup with the Colts. But next, the latest on Melvin Gordon and Thursday's rematch between the Chargers and Chiefs. Two best records in the AFC square off with plenty on the line.